Hello everyone, Jester Bella is back, and today we're going to talk about the recent implosion of DC Comics. The fact that Warner Brothers has laid off so many employees of DC Comics, basically gotten rid of all their original editorial staff that was there, and that it looks like we're on the brink of the end for DC Comics as we know it. Not that there won't be any more DC Comics, just as the industry as we know it is coming to an end. Now, this basically DC Comics apocalypse has been seen coming for a long time. It seemed like it's been taking a while to get there, and for a while people just kind of dismissed the rumors and said that they were just, clickbait, that they were just there for, doomsday predictions, that they were there just to rile people up. But we're finally seeing it actually happen, and it was just a day's time, it felt like, that we saw very high up people at DC Comics that I never thought would leave, or people who I never thought would be downgraded, like Jim Lee. He's been put down from publisher to just basically a person with creative input at DC Comics, and it's something that was very shocking because it's just something that was, again, rumored for so long, but you never thought you'd see it actually come to a head. And first of all, I want to say I'm sorry for the people that have lost their jobs through this. It's a very trying time right now, and it's the worst time to have lost your job like this. Some people were very bad apples at DC Comics, like Bob Harris, who a lot of people believe protected sexual harasser Scott Lobdell, and I believe he's on his way out too, so that's good. So some bad apples have left, but there were good people at DC Comics who I'm sorry that they lost their jobs. But I have to be honest, and this is kind of be echoing around lately, that this is what DC Comics brought on themselves for a lot of different reasons. They brought it on themselves because they didn't really know how to properly evolve in the new world as comic book characters became mainstream and moved off to movies and TV, as digital became more prominent. They kind of just became this super secret club for people who originally liked comics and people who have been in the industry for years. They never expanded themselves. They never were able to evolve. So that's part of the reason why this is happening. Another part of the reason it's happening, and a reason why I can't really be sad about any of this, is they don't create good stories. They didn't take care of their characters, and they didn't take care of a lot of the readership that they did have. Being a fan of DC Comics is like kind of, I would say for me, it's kind of like being in a toxic relationship, to be a fan of DC Comics these days, because it's like they have so many characters that I've loved because of their previous material, like Batman the Animated Series or related comics to that. But they never take care of their characters. Most of the time I find myself just, I just find myself wincing at how they're using the characters. I find myself just arguing and complaining about how they use their characters. I find myself even feeling a little bit of pain to see how they're using characters that I came to really care about. And that's not something you want to feel in a fan base. You want to feel happy. You want to feel an escape when you read these stories. You don't want to get into more arguing, and you don't want to get into more politics. And I'm not meaning politics like leftist or right politics. I'm talking about the politics of comics where you're just arguing about how things are done. You're seeing how things are done. You're arguing about it with other people. That's how a lot of comics has become, arguing over the way things are done. That's not what you want. You want a fan base that feels happy when they're a part of something like this. Like DC Fandom is coming very soon, and they keep saying that, the DC Fandom, it's made for you, the fans. I just think that that's an ironic statement coming from DC, because I don't feel like most of their material is for the fans. I feel like they just kind of flip off the fans most of the time, and they take people who invested their time and their money in these things, and they don't consider how they'd feel about all these changes that they're making for characters. And they've made a lot of changes to the characters, saying that they're going to bring over new readership, but that's never happened. You need to keep your characters a certain way that people like, and keep your original fan base while broadening them and showing other people why they should like these characters too. You don't want to constantly be making changes, otherwise the character isn't anything solid anymore. So right now with DC, it's like, and it's amazing how this has become such a big deal for DC Comics to do this, but at the same time, not a lot of people are really talking about it. Not as many as you'd think, because a lot of people just don't care anymore. Because, if you don't want to care about something that constantly brings you misery, and that's what comics can kind of do. And I think it really started with New 52 and saying that we're getting rid of all the old characters and the old stories and we're changing them into this new and different thing. And a lot of people thought that would change with Rebirth, but it really didn't. They keep, you know, how did Tom King's Batman get released? And how did the Bendis Superman stuff happen? And I complain about Harley on here all the time with what they do with her, but none of this stuff is selling. None of this stuff was actually selling on a wide scale because, you know, they weren't producing anything that would make people happy, and now that kind of is coming home to them. But what I'm really worried about is, is this going to be a good thing for these characters, or is it going to be a bad thing? And there's so many rumors going around right now about what's going to happen next. And this is a developing story, and things could change, you know, even after I'm done recording this video and I'm trying to get it uploaded. So there's rumors, pretty certain right now that they're going to be streamlining comics, and less comics will be published. And there's some good and there's some bad wrapped up in this. Now, what I would like to happen with comics, and what might happen, is I would like them to move away from single issues. This might be controversial for the old timers, but I want them to move away from single issues and move to graphic novels. And that's the rumor what might happen. And I think that's great because I see that as far more, that's just far greater for business. Like, graphic novels have been selling more. I only buy comics in trade form and in graphic novel form because it's just so expensive to buy so many issues, or they're so overpriced. And it's even more unpleasant when you have them because you want to keep them in a nice little sleeve that they give you because you want to keep it nice, but it's just so much easier to just grab the trade off the shelf and read that. So it's so much easier and more accessible to get these comics